All of these amazing plants are aloes, but none of them are the aloe vera. These are just a few of more than 500 species that exist in our world today. And you can find many of these species at your local nursery or even in the big box stores. One of my rarest species of aloe came from a big box store, and it actually had no name on it. Today I want to teach you to have confidence in looking for an aloe, how to identify that aloe. I want to teach you how to take care of it so that when you get it home, you can help it to thrive and grow and reproduce for years to come. Today, I want to make it easy to find a really exotic plant that works for you. One of the great things about the aloe is that it hybridizes so easily, which explains why we have so many amazing varieties. But the aloe has reached a point where it's really difficult to keep track of the names of the species of your plant. So it's not uncommon when you get to the plant store to look at the plant and actually not have a name on it. Even when there is a tag, sometimes there's not even an identification that it is an aloe, let alone having a common name. So let me teach you some of the identifying characteristics so that when you're looking at them, you'll be able to identify even if there's not a name on the plant. In general terms, every aloe has this cone-shaped leaf. It's a distinctive characteristic. It can be thin and long, or it can be short and wide, but that lance shape is very distinctive for the aloe. Most aloes have spines on the edges of the leaves, and sometimes they're easy to see, and sometimes they're very indistinct, but if you run your finger down the edge of the leaf, you will feel a spiny presence there. Some of the spines are very soft, and some of them are sharp and prickly. So this is something you want to do when you're selecting your aloe to make sure it's something that you want in your home. Most aloes grow in this round shape that's called a rosette, but some do come in a fan shape. If you've found a plant that's grown from seed and it's a very young plant, they almost always start in the fan shape, and as they age, they develop this wonderful rosette. They come in a wide range of colors, from a deep emerald green to a blue green to a white to a chalky appearance, and some of them even have a really interesting deep red or orange or cream colored peachy appearance on the edge of the leaves. Now that famous aloe vera has a very smooth plump leaf on it, but very few aloes actually have that kind of smoothness. This one does, but most aloes have a very rough textured leaf on it, and you can actually feel the bumps and the knots on the leaves, and some of them are actually little spines growing on the middle of the leaf. And you'll notice the coloration. Some of them have little dashes along the leaf. Some of them are a little bit more raised in color, and some of them are spotted leaves. It's definitely more of the dots and dashes than it is a stripe. Aloes rarely come with a stripe on the leaves. If your aloe's happy, it's going to bloom every year. And aloes bloom in shades of yellow, orange, pink, and even red. Most aloes grow very close to the ground, but some of them grow up into a stalk. A few of them grow into trees, and some actually grow up a trellis more than 30 feet tall. When you get to the plant store and find a great selection of aloes, let's talk about how you pick a healthy one. Notice with this magic carpet bag and this pink blush aloe that the growth is very compact, the leaves are very close together on the stem, and it has an upright appearance. It's not leaning, it's not drooping. This is evidence of a plant that is receiving good sunlight. But notice with this snowflake aloe and this snowstorm aloe how the color changes right at the base of the leaf, how they flattened out, and that color change indicates that it's not getting adequate sunlight. You'll see them flatten and stretch as if they're trying to expose more of the leaf to the sun. You want to choose an aloe that has thick, plump leaves because these leaves are filled with moisture. And as the plant loses moisture, as it goes dry in between waterings, you'll notice that the leaf curls. You can see the nice curl here and here. That's an indication that the plant is a little bit dry and it's getting thirsty because it's using up the moisture in the leaves. And this is not a sign of a sad plant. It's a sign of a healthy plant that is surviving a dry period in the pot, because aloes like to be dry. So even a curled leaf is fine. It shows that it's healthy. You want to look for leaves that are fairly firm. If they're mushy, if they're soft, those are the leaves you want to avoid. A mushy and soft leaf indicates a plant that has been overwatered. When an aloe is very happy, it will produce pups. These are offsets and they are identical to the parent plant, and the presence of pups is a sure sign of a healthy plant. While you're looking at your plant, if it's possible, you want to slip it out of the pot. And you'll notice on this one, it's actually double potted. It has a glass pot and then it has a plastic pot underneath. And if you slip off that plastic pot, you should see firm roots that are very distinctive. It may look like it's a little bit root bound, and that's okay because aloes like to be tight in the pot. But you shouldn't see very dark, mushy roots. They should be very firm when you touch them, very distinctive when you touch them. When I bought this plant, it was sitting outside in the shade at a big box store. So when I get it home, I'm going to put it in the shade for it to adapt. Now once you get home, the first thing to do is to get it into a clay pot. A ceramic pot that's been sealed will not breathe and it will hold moisture around the roots of the soil. And a plastic pot will do exactly the same thing. So you want to get them out of those pots and find a terracotta pot or a clay pot that has not been painted and has not been sealed. These pots breathe and they allow moisture to evaporate out of the soil, and it will keep your plant healthy. When you're repotting your aloe, you want to use a mixture of soil. It needs to be a very well draining soil, and I use a mixture of 1 part compost and 1 part perlite and 1 part sand. And I mix these together so that the moisture flows very freely through the soil and out the bottom. Lots of people use pebbles or porous rocks in their soil, and that's a great idea too. This is an expanded shale, and it's actually a porous rock that will hold air spaces in the soil, and that works great too. On repotting it, I'm not going to divide it because I like the look of the pups surrounding the plant, and I want to look at the base of the plant. If it has a few dead leaves, you can go ahead and take those off. They usually come off very easily, but if they don't, grab some nippers and prune them off. This is a regular part of caring for your aloe, is just to remove any spent leaves at the base. And so you want to set it in your pot so that the top of the soil level is a little bit below the edge of the pot. You don't want it to be sitting too deeply in the pot. If you have it sitting deep in the pot, you're going to have your leaves covered up with soil, and that's not ever a good situation for an aloe. If you know what you're doing, you can grow aloes in any kind of pot. But if you're new at it and you're a little bit unsure, terracotta is always your safest bet. So now that it is repotted, I'm going to place it outside in the shade for a week, and I am not going to water it. I didn't water it when I put it in the pot, and I'm not going to water it for at least a week. Your goal with a new aloe is to help it relax and get comfortable in your home environment. And watering it will produce a little bit more stress, so we're going to wait to water it. So let's talk about sunlight. There's some misinformation out there about aloes. The thought is that you need to give them bright, indirect sunlight, and that is not the case. Aloes in their native environment get bright, direct sunlight for 6 hours a day and even more sometimes. And it's the bright sunlight that causes them to have the wonderful color. So if you put them in the house in indirect light, the color is going to fade and the health of the plant is going to suffer because it needs sunlight. But here's the deal, it needs morning sunlight. Morning sunlight is less intense and it's perfectly suited for aloe plants. So if you're keeping it in the house, you want to get it into an east window where it can have direct morning sun. And if it's outside in a warm climate, you want to position it where it can get direct morning sun. Now, if your plant was in the shade or inside at the store, you're going to need to acclimate it to the sun. If you put it out in the direct sun, right away it will burn. And you'll notice the leaves are turning brown and they're getting crispy. That's something that you want to avoid. What you do is ease it into the sun for about an hour, and then the next day a little bit longer, and then a little bit longer. And what you should notice as you acclimate it to the sun is that the color becomes more vibrant instead of getting dull and brown and crispy. Your goal is about 3 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. Now, every species is a little bit different. Some like a little bit less and some like a little bit more. But in general, when you get the proper amount of sunlight, you're going to see the pink and red edges showing up really nicely on your variegated aloes. You might even see the green leaves turning a little bit red on the tips, and this is the plant's reaction to sunlight, and those bright, vibrant colors are a good sign that you're getting the right sunlight. Now, if you notice that it's turning pale, that it's getting a little bit long and leggy, or that it's flattening out on the leaves and losing color, that's a sign of not enough sunlight. By far the most difficult part of caring for an aloe is understanding the need for water. Aloe's native environment is a warm, arid desert, and it is used to being very dry between the temperatures of about 65 and 85. And in that sweet spot of temperature, it can stay dry for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks without suffering because of a lack of water. But if it gets hotter, it will need more water. If it gets colder, it will need less water. You have to think about the factors that cause the water to evaporate out of the soil for this plant. Now, if you can stick your finger in the soil, that's the best way to do it. Stick it in an inch or two, and if it comes out moist at all, do not water this plant. It only needs a very little bit of water. You also want to look at your plant because the condition of the plant will tell you when it's thirsty. If the leaves are flushed out and plump and bright colored, it's fine. If the leaves start to curl, that's your first sign that it's getting a little bit thirsty. Now, this plant is designed to live on the moisture in the leaves. So the fact that you see the leaves plump out and curl up, that is a normal, natural part of the cycle of this plant. But the more they curl, the more they are in need of moisture. So that is your telltale sign. When you water your plant, because it gets so dry, sometimes it is absolutely necessary to soak it. Sometimes when you put the water in, it just flows around the outside of the pot and out the bottom of the pot without actually soaking into the soil. And that can happen with an aloe that is very, very dry. So when you water it, it's helpful to have a tray. And you actually water it at the top, but then set it in a tray of water for about 5 minutes, maybe 10, never more than that. And that gives the soil an opportunity to actually soak up the water so that it reaches the center of the soil ball and all the roots are watered evenly. That's really important. If you have a curled leaf and you water it properly, within a couple of days, you should see those leaves uncurl and relax and plump up again. That's how you know that you have watered it properly. The best way to kill this plant is to water it too much. It gets root rot so easily. You never want to leave those roots sitting in damp, soggy soil. These plants, when they're happy, will produce pups prolifically. And if you want more pups, you can put it in a larger pot and it will do that. But if you want to control the amount of pups, then you want to keep it in a smaller pot. Fertilizer will also affect the pup development. If you want to fertilize this plant so that it is prolific, you would do that once in the warm season. And you would do that with a cactus and succulent fertilizer or a normal fertilizer that is diluted 50%. That would work well. But if you want it to stay compact and have fewer pups, you can withhold the fertilizer and it will cause that growth rate to slow down quite a bit. In terms of caring for the plant through the seasons, if you are maintaining it outside, then as long as it doesn't drop below about 50 degrees, it's going to be fairly safe. Now, aloes grow all over the African continent, and they are in high altitudes and low altitudes. Some are in the shade, some are in the sun. Some of them can take a higher temperature, and some of them can take a lower temperature. The lace aloe, for example, can actually get down to about 19 degrees Fahrenheit. It can take some frost, and it can even take some snow. But for the most part, aloes are very tender to temperature, and so you want to protect them in the fall and in the winter and in the early spring from those extreme temperatures. When you're bringing them inside, you always want to put them in an east window so that they can continue to get the morning sun that they need. One option in the wintertime is that they will actually go dormant. As they get into the colder temperatures, you can actually remove them from the soil, prune back the green growth, and put them in a box in a very cool place, like about 50 degrees to 40 degrees. And in that box, in that darkness, they will go dormant, and they can stay dormant for 3 to 4 months until the spring comes around again. And once it warms up, you can put them back in the soil, give them some water, and they will flush out and grow again. I hope I've inspired you today to branch out and choose a plant that is truly unique. I hope I've given you the confidence to pick a healthy one, to take it home, and to let it thrive and grow and reproduce for years to come. If you haven't clicked the thumbs up yet, go ahead and do that, and subscribe if you need to, and I will see you next time on The Handcrafted Garden.